Yeah. No, I've got to go. I've got drinks with Kate. Yeah. Been looking forward to this all day. See ya. Bye. Hi, guys. Hey, g'day, everyone. Hey, Shell. Hello, Alison. Lovely to see you again. Hello, Rob and Deb. Looking forward to the Pinot myself for all sorts of reasons. Hello, Cotty and John. Good to see you too. I've just missed an amazing sunset. I don't usually do this, but I'm just going to turn you around. Ignore the messy room. Look at that. Hey, that's pretty special, isn't it? Gorgeous night sky. And I tried again to take photos of the pink moon the other day, but I just should stop. So beautiful. Hi, Kevin and Emily. How you going? Jack and Zach, who I met in real life flesh on the weekend. Hello, how you going? And hello, Hannah. Great to see you back. Angela, wow was what I said when you sent me a picture of your duck that you've got to go with the Pinot tonight. So there you go. How is everyone? I'm a bit tired, but I'm not going to complain. Daryl, how you going? Are you with Sue? I would like to actually at this point in time, I'm not sure if she's watching, but I wanted to, Linda's on the chat too. Oh my goodness gracious. And Karen Whitehead and Peter are joining us from Jabiru. So g'day guys. Lovely to see you. So Daryl and Sue, I'm not sure if Sue's here. Sue's not very well at the moment, and I'm hoping that she's well enough to share a little glass of wine with us, because hopefully that might cheer you up a little bit. Lots of love, and hope you're feeling a lot better soon. But we are drinking tonight the Garden Vineyard Pinot Noir 2018, which is the wine that is made from fruit from Sue and Daryl's vineyard. So awesome to be drinking this wine. I'm very glad you're there, Daryl. And if Sue's not with you, please give her all of our love and tell her to get well soon. Ryan, g'day, how you going? Yeah, so anyway, I think we might not have quite as many people here with us tonight, because we've got competition on the airwaves tonight, as I intimated in my email the other day. Hugh and Hook's doing tasting right now as well from 6 o'clock, and he's featuring hopefully in the second half of his tasting. So maybe I'm going to try and jump on after we finish, but we'll finish when we finish. It's all good. I'm not going to rush this. This is something I've been looking forward to all day. Oh, thanks, Alison. Yes, I've gone shorter again. Still a lot longer than it was. Actually, when we started, I was already growing it out. But those of you who know me, it was very, very short a couple of years ago, and it's been a process getting it to this length. But thank you. This is what I was kind of looking for a while. Might get longer again. Who knows? Hi, Sarah. How you going? And who else did I miss? Karen and Joan, how you going? What is Craig doing at work at this time of day? You've got to get him. He's got to get his schedule sorted out. It's terrible. I'm sorry to hear it. I was also thinking, why is it that we keep missing the sunsets? Last year we got beautiful sunsets, but then I remembered that this time last year we were in lockdown and we were doing these at 5 o'clock. So it was a whole hour earlier. I'm very glad that we're doing them at 6 o'clock and that we're not in lockdown anymore. And for anyone else who's watching from other parts of the world, I'm not sure, I haven't heard from Angel or Robert this year, but if you're out there, hi guys. My friend Karen and my friend Sue and their lovely husbands, Andy and Richard, might be watching. So anyway, hello to everybody who's out there, even if you're not on the chat. I know that some of you are out there just kind of listening and watching and drinking along. So I'm aware of you all, and it's lovely to have you out there. Yeah, Karen, it's true. He does need to realise his priorities. So I think you need to have a serious chat to him. Shell, that sounds amazing. 3 cheddars. Jill's on her way out. Say hi to Jill, everyone. Hi, Jill. It's hot water bottle for the cat time again at that time of year. Shell, that sounds amazing. 3 cheddars, English crumbly, smoky from Warrnambool, and yum from South Melbourne Market. I miss the South Melbourne Market. A lot of you won't know, but I grew up in Middle Park, and South Melbourne Market was where we did our weekly shopping. So it's kind of a blast from the past. It's changed a bit now. It's much more boutique than it used to be. I'm going to get my wine open in a minute. Before that, I'm going to show you my snacks, because I have seriously gone really old school, a bit grungy. So Shell's talking about her 3 different beautiful cheddars, which sound amazing. I've gone plastic cheddar from the supermarket on a cracker. Hey, sometimes when you're feeling a little bit sooky, a little cracker, a nice salty cracker, and some plastic cheese from, it's not completely plastic cheese. It's the cheese that had its name changed recently. And I'm not sure how Mum bought it, but it's got the old name on it. So either it's really old, it'll have extra flavour, or she bought it, Angela, it is it's coon cheese. I can't remember what they changed the name to, but anyway, it was bought for my 4-year-old niece, who has very simple taste in food and doesn't like fancy stuff. And so there's all sorts of fun things lying around the house that are for people. I nearly put some Vegemite in underneath, but I've just gone hardcore cheese and cracker. Beautiful, love it. G'day, Jeff. I wasn't sure whether you'd be joining us. Lovely to see you, Cotty. A bit of homemade spanakopita and cheese pita. That sounds amazing, delicious, yum. All right. No one's texting me. Someone's just liking one of my pictures on Instagram. All right, let's get some wine in the glass. Okay, so Garden Vineyard Pinot. It's a 2018, so it's quite young. And we've talked about decanting and not decanting, and a lot of people have a rule of not decanting Pinot Noir. I'm not going to decant this tonight because I honestly couldn't be bothered. That's a terrible attitude, isn't it? But if you wanted to decant that wine, it would just get it breathing up a little bit quicker. So I still, as I've said to you guys all before, I still really like seeing the wine evolving from first opening into the glass and having it breathe up as it opens up in the glass. Now, Richard's sort of semi-half threatened / promised to maybe come in and have a chat to us for 5 minutes about why he likes making whole bunch wine, but we're not going to wait for him because that would be crazy. Polly's in the background. Hello, Polly. And I have to tell you, Miss Polly is in disgrace. I put my cheese and crackers down. I've got 4 crackers and 4 bits of cheese. Put it down on the table, went to get my glass and came back, and I had 4 crackers and 3 bits of cheese and a little white dog licking her lips. So not very impressed with that, but I've managed to rectify the situation and got rid of the dog-tainted cracker. Frody's around. So we've got cats, dogs. Everyone's settling down for a nice night. Oh, I have to show you. This is my vintage hoodie. Hang on, I'm going to stand up for a minute. It's got so the front of it is a bit bewildering. It's a brandy barrel with the cross on it for emergency services and a duck. And then hang on, this is going to be really great television. On the back, hey, how cool is that? So we're essential services from last year, getting out and about and delivering your wine to you to keep you stocked up with Moorooduc Estate wine during the lockdown. And I think, this year we've been essential services for getting that 2001 fruit in and through the winery and safely put away in barrel. And we're nearly there. We had to, sadly, I don't know if I told you this story last week, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself, but we sadly, Polly is losing her edge, and she's a bit fussy. She just took the cheese and left the cracker. So she's obviously not a fan of Savoys, but, she's I think she was being ladylike, or that's what she told me afterwards. Anyway, we're not talking at the moment. And she is she's having the good grace to look slightly embarrassed about it. So it's all good. We'll be right. So this has been an exciting couple of weeks. It's a sweetheart. Yes, thanks, Pete. Pete, who is just joining us on the chat, my brother. He and I had the vague idea. He made it real and made it much better than my idea. So he designed it, got it printed up for us. And this hoodie has just gone to the vintage team. So it's a real collector's item. Oh yeah, Jeff, how's your little buddy going? It is a Groodle, Ryan. Absolutely. Is he a Groodle or is he no, he's not a Groodle. He's a Spoodle or a Cavoodle. He's a Spaniel Poodle cross. Cute little black guy. So, sorry, I am absolutely losing my mind today. So I will tell you why, and then I'll finish telling you the other story that I was telling you, and then we'll taste some wine. So I'm losing my mind today because I overcommitted this week, and I forgot that when you go out to dinner in Melbourne and host a dinner for somebody at a restaurant, and the people who are paying also want to talk to you about your wine expertise, you're usually not going to get back to Moorooduc and Mount Eliza until after midnight. So that's what happened to me last night. I went to a lovely dinner. I was the official wine expert at the dinner, and we tasted through and drank. Well, they drank. I tasted because I was driving. Lots of beautiful wines, including a 1996 Hill of Grace, Henschke Hill of Grace, and a 2010 Penfolds Grange. They were sort of like the show-stopping wines at the end. But in fact, for me, the Chardonnays were the highlight of the night. We had a Lewin Estate Art Series Chardonnay next to a Giaconda Chardonnay, both from 2019, and they were absolutely delicious. Anyway, so that would have been fine, but I also had committed to a Zoom meeting with a committee that I'm part of as part of the Institute of Masters of Wine at 5 o'clock this morning, because we have members in this committee from Europe and North America and Australia. And so, of course, being the only Australian in the group, I drew the short straw this time. So I got home, had 4 hours sleep, got up for my Zoom meeting, and now my mind is mush and I just need a glass of wine. So, glass of wine. Hi, Kay, thank you. Yes, we're all admiring the shirt. You can't buy them. You have to work vintage at Moorooduc to get a vintage hoodie. So, or work in Celador. We had a spare one. So the lovely Nigel. Hello, Nigel. Are you out there? Nigel was going to try and jump on, but he's got children's lunches and things to. 5 a.m. exactly, Alison. It was a bit of a shock to the system, says Kate, who has since lockdown been going to bed sort of sometime between 10 and 11 and waking up in the morning sometime between 6 and 7, having a lovely night's sleep and being able to have a cruisy morning. So good on you. Good on you, Shell. Sorry, I had to have a sip of wine. I was getting a bit dry. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's looking pretty good, but it needs to open up a bit. Plastic cheddar. Vegan Savoy cabbage and potato gratin. Yum, how delicious. That sounds awesome. So my other story that I was halfway through telling you, here comes Richard as well. Come on, Richard, come and sit down. I'm just telling these people the story of our week and the fact that we have had you got to come and, so if you can see your face in the screen, they can see your face. Yeah. Pour yourself a glass of wine. I'll finish telling this story, and then we'll have a little chat about the wine. So David, who has been doing vintage with us and who's been working here since about November last year. He was in Celador for a little while anyway, pre-vintage, and we were hoping he was going to be able to stay and work in Celador and maybe do some pruning and stuff for us for a little while afterwards. He had a few issues with his visa, and basically he's decided to go back to England, which he's very sad about. We're very sad about. I don't think he's watching us tonight because he's got a about a week and a half still in Australia. I think he's in Tasmania at the moment with a friend, and then he's going to South Australia for a few days with another friend, and then he's going to Sydney to see family, and then he's flying back to England. So very sad to say goodbye to David. Cheers, David. Thank you for a lovely, if you are watching, thank you for a lovely time here at Moorooduc, and you'll always be part of the Moorooduc Estate family now, so you can't get away from us. But it means that we've had a little bit of tidying up in the winery that we thought we'd get David to do, but he's not here to do it. So Richard's been working hard. I've done a couple of extra days this week that hadn't really been planned, and Jeremy's been working super hard too, because he's also got kids to wrangle and pickups and all sorts of things going on. So anyway, it's been a shambolic week, and it's lovely to sit down on a Thursday evening with you guys and have a glass of Pinot. So 2018 Garden Vineyard Pinot. Richard, we've got quite a few people on the chat. We've got 25 people on at the moment, and Daryl's here. I'm not sure whether Sue is or not. We haven't worked that out yet, but that's all right. Mapu tofu with Robin Deb's eggplant, yum, and Pinot, obviously, absolutely delicious. So this wine is special, and we have tasted this wine before last year, but nice to come back and taste it again when it's got a little bit more age on it in the bottle. It's a wine that I think needs a bit of time in the bottle. It needs a bit of time once it comes out of the bottle in the glass to open up. It needs a bit of food, which is why I brought my crackers and cheese tonight. Also, I might get a chance to eat it because I'm going to get Dad to do some talking. But Dad, this is a wine that is quite different from any of the other Pinot Noirs that you make because it's whole bunch fermented. So why do you like doing whole bunch ferment if you do? Why do you do it to this wine? And why don't you do it to everything? It's some easy question. That'll give me time to eat my biscuits and cheese.
Yes, well, I think my interest in whole bunch ferments originally comes from some very famous Burgundies that are made that way. The more normal way of making red wine is to remove the stems. In fact, in the history of winemaking, that's a very recent phenomenon, because I don't know exactly when it was that these machines that de-stem were invented, but probably 100 years ago or something like that. And I like to say that we've been making wine for 12,000 years. And
here at Moorooduc?
Probably not at Moorooduc. No.
Just generally as humans.
Generally as humans. And it's probably much longer than that if you think about it, because wine is fruit juice that's gone off, and people must have realised that it was not just a strange food thing that's gone off. It had some interesting properties.
Nice side effects.
Yeah.
Until later.
So it certainly has a long history, and there are some wonderful wines being made that way. Another reason is that I think that there are places of the New World, including Mornington Peninsula, which, despite what was thought 30, 40 years ago, is a wonderful place to grow Pinot Noir. But one of the characteristics of good New World Pinot Noir is that sometimes they seem to lack a little bit of structure, a little bit of tannin. I think that's actually changing a bit. Maybe that's with vine age and that sort of thing. But when I started getting interested in this, I felt that our wines would have been more interesting with a little bit more structure. We also very readily get sweet fruit characters in wines in the New World. Very strong primary fruit, and that's a great gift in many ways. But sometimes you like to think that, gee, it would be even more interesting if we had a little bit of savoury input into the aromas and flavours. And that is one of the things that can happen with whole bunch ferments. So I still regard this as a little bit experimental. It's work in progress. This particular parcel of fruit from the back block of the Garden Vineyard just happened to be a parcel that I was doing trials on about 12 years ago, something like that. And I think we made some good progress in working out a good way of making wines with whole bunches. Sometimes whole bunch wines just smell too much of green stems. Sometimes the fruit isn't sufficient. And you think, well, that's a bit of a failure. But there was one arm of a 3-arm trial, which was from the Garden Vineyard back block, which was made in this particular way that I thought really worked well. And that was in 2010. And I made a decision to plan to make wine from this particular parcel that way until I changed my mind. And I haven't changed my mind yet because I think it works really well most years, this technique with that particular parcel of fruit.
I'm just reading the comments and questions, Dad, and I'll pass them on to you in a moment. But 2010 was a bit of a revelatory year for whole bunch ferments for us, wasn't it? Because it was when you decided to do when I said let's pull the Shiraz out, and you said let's do it as a whole bunch. Let's try doing it as a whole bunch ferment, and that's kind of revolutionised Shiraz production as well. So. What was it about 2010 that made whole bunch so successful? Was it just a really good year, or you got got everything right for in a way that you hadn't before?
I mean, it was a terrific year. Just in a general term, it was a pretty warm year.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we look for, and this is a generalisation, but a year where you get ripeness in the tannins is, I think, more likely to be successful with this whole bunch technique. And I think that was certainly the case in 2010.
Yep. So just to let you know, Dad, Zach and Jack think that you nailed it. So well done.
Good.
Yep. So the big thumbs up for you there. Rob and Deb, I never know whether it's Rob or Deb chatting, so I just assume that it's both of you, say that I'm struck by how light the colour is, yet how fulsome the flavour. Can you comment on maybe how that works? Because a lot of people talk about whole bunch, and some people say it makes it darker, a whole bunch ferment. Some people say it makes it lighter. What are we getting from the whole bunch ferment that we don't get when you don't have a whole bunch involved?
I think.
And how much whole bunch do you use?
This is 100% whole bunch. And there are lots of different ways of doing whole bunch ferments. As I was implying before, one of the important things from my point of view is to get that added tannin, that added structure from the stems. You would expect with extra tannin that would at least stabilise colour. Certainly other tannins in wines seem to stabilise the colour, and if you look at a very young wine out of a brand new barrel, it'll often be a darker colour than the same wine out of an older barrel, and that's supposedly you do get some wood tannins from very new oak barrels. So you would expect the colour to be darker, and I think it usually is. There are some very famous whole bunch Burgundies, or they were whole bunch, that were very light in colour, and an explanation that I had, what's his name? MW came out here.
I don't know. Just some very impressive. Benjamin Lewin.
No.
Oh no.
Anyway, he said, those people, it was just they spent a very short time on skins and stems, and we leave them on skins and stems for usually 16, 17 days, something like that. And I think that is normally enough time to get the tannin and the colour and get the stabilisation effect. 2018 was a year where the Pinot Noir colour was a little less than usual. And
generally across all of the Pinots,
yes, across, as a vintage characteristic. We do know that the berries were slightly bigger than they usually are, and the size of the berry does have an effect, because smaller berries have a higher surface to volume ratio, and it's the skins, of course, representing the surface, is where all the colour is, and a lot of the tannin.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll find mostly, good red wine grapes are quite small berries, because you want that.
Absolutely. You're getting lots of questions, Dad. So 2 questions about tannins. Angela wants to know, what does ripeness in the tannins mean? What do you mean by that? And Cotty wants to know, does tannin always equal structure?
Tannin and structure aren't probably quite synonymous, but very close to it.
It's one part of this. It's a very important part of the structural makeup of a red wine, but also alcohol and acid have to be, and fruit depth have to be sort of taken into account when you're talking about structure. Yeah,
I think so. But it's mainly the tannin. So we sort of use it as a synonymous term often.
Just if I can interrupt really quickly, just in case anyone's confused about what we're talking about when we're talking about tannin. It's that textural quality that you get in red wine that you don't get in most white wines, that makes your mouth feel dry, and you can. It almost feels like little bits of it. For me, it's got a physical presence on the palate. It's quite hard to describe, but if you take it away from wine, a really good way to explore tannins in a simpler sense is if you think about when you eat a green banana and your teeth go all furry. That's unripe tannins in bananas, as compared to ripe tannins in yellow bananas that don't make your teeth go furry. And I think Dad's going to talk about ripeness in tannins in a moment when I give him a chance. But the other way to experience tannin is to make a cup of black tea. Make it really strong. If you use tea bags or tea leaves, leave it on the tea leaves for a long time. Let it go cold. So if you've got a pot of tea, just let it go cold and then pour out some of that strong black tea and taste it. And it'll be really bitter and it'll be drying. You'll feel it sort of in your gums and in the sides of your mouth and then sort of back across the roof of your mouth. That's tannin. Okay, Richard.
Okay, well, yeah. I was going to mention the tea thing. And you get that mouth coating sort of furriness from tannins, and that can vary with wines a lot. And we talk about fine-grained tannins and coarse tannins, and usually we think fine-grained tannins are nicer drink. They're more attractive than coarse tannins, and some tannins are bitter, and that can be a problem. Ripe and unripe tannins. I think I can answer that slightly indirectly. When we're sampling grapes as they're ripening to make decisions about when we're going to pick them, one of the things we look at is we look at the pips, at the seeds, and if you and there's a lot of tannin in the seeds. If you have unripe grapes that have unripe seeds, the pulp of the grape will cling to the seed. That's the first thing. Secondly, they will look green colour, and as distinct from a tanny brown colour. And if you bite into one of these unripe seeds, you get a bitter green character. And then as you get a certain level of ripeness, if you do the same thing, the flesh falls off the seed, and you put it in, you crunch on one of these things, it's all it's suddenly transformed into something that's sort of crunchy and a little bit nut-like and not bitter. And that's, I think, the easiest way that we make judgments about whether or not the tannins are ripe.
Yeah, underripe tannins to me have a green, astringent kind of a texture and taste to them, whereas ripe tannins are sort of more mellow, rounder. They bring a savouriness to the wine and they bring a texture to the wine, but you don't want them to bring a green you don't want the flavour to be the sort of flavour when you bite into a pea pod or something like that. Pea pods have green tannins in them, and they're astringent. They make your mouth pucker. Correct, Alison? And they're not pleasant. Whereas ripe tannins are savoury and sometimes a little bit bitter, but in a riper way. If that makes sense. Shell, I hang on to that question for a second because we'll come back to tannins. Rob pointed out, being the weatherman that he is, that 2010 was the end of the drought. So it was a beautiful year for growing grapes. It stopped being dry. It started being slightly wetter. It wasn't as wet as 2011, which was a bit of a disaster of a year. So 2010 was kind of the calm at the eye of the storm. Would you like a cheese and biscuit, Richard, while I talk? No, he's going to save himself. You do. It's 6:30.
I need to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all right. I think I can handle it from here.
I'm sure you can.
But thank you for joining us. It was lovely to hear a little bit. And I wanted to say, just before I continue answering questions, I reckon the reason you like doing whole bunch ferments is because you get to walk around on top of the grapes in your gumboots. Yeah. It's quite a satisfying. It looks that I'm not allowed to do it. It's his. He does. He's like, no one else is allowed to walk on the whole bunch ferments except for me.
That's the excuse. They just don't want to do it. Anyway, it's all. I find it very interesting, and I didn't really ask the question, why don't we do it for all the wines? And the reason is that it doesn't always work very well, and you do lose some of the lovely aromatics and flavours that we look for. So this is still experimental, and most of the red wines we do it in a different way without the stems.
Yeah, anyway. we get nice structure in the wines, and I think it was trial and error, but we've kept coming back to our trials with the Garden Vineyard over the years, and we really think this parcel of fruit really enjoys being treated in this way, and we like the results. So whatever.
Okay.
Thanks, Dad. Have a lovely night. He's got to go to another social engagement now. It's very, very busy. My parents. Okay, that was nice. I got to have a little nibble on some cheese and listen to it instead of talking to myself the whole time. There was somebody. Who was it? Was it Shell? Somebody suggested it would be lovely to. No, it was Zach and Jack said it would be lovely to interview Jeremy at some stage, and I will broach that subject with him at some stage. He's quite busy with family duties at this time of night, so it's quite hard to get him away at that time. But maybe down the track, once we've got over the exhaustion of vintage, maybe after he's had a little holiday, we'll be able to tempt him in with a glass of something nice. Anyway, so Shell and Emily Merlot. So no, I don't think tannin is why you despise Merlot necessarily, Shell. Although, for me, the shape of the tannins in different red wines are different, and Merlot tannins are quite blocky, and this gets a little weird and a little technical, and this goes back to me trying to get my head around full-bodied red wines with lots of tannin and lots of alcohol and lots of fruit and lots of structure when I was studying for my Master of Wine. And what I discovered worked for me and works for some of my students when I explain it to them, but others look at me as though I've gone completely insane. So please, if this doesn't make any sense at all, please just have another sip of your wine and I'll stop talking about it in a minute. But for me, all the different red grape varieties have different shaped tannins. So Pinot Noir has quite fine, firm tannins, but fine and velvety or silky tannins. So that there's this kind of juxtaposition between firmness and silkiness or velvetiness in Pinot Noir. In Cabernet has extremely fine grained tannins, but they're very intense and they sort of hit the palate a nanosecond after you've put the wine in your mouth. So you put the wine in your mouth and you taste the fruit and then the tannin starts building. It's a little bit like chili heat. So the tannin builds from the front of the palate all the way to the back of the palate, and then when you've swallowed your Cabernet Sauvignon, dominant wine or base wine, you can still feel the tannins and they're still getting bigger and they're still drying your mouth out more. But you can't sort of feel the individual tannins. It's just this sensation of dryness that kind of fans out at the back of the palate. Merlot, on the other hand, which sometimes Merlot, and it depends when you're talking about Merlot, whether you're talking about Australian Merlot, and one of the reasons that I am not a big fan of Australian Merlot is that I don't think we've got the right clones of Merlot here. Nobody's ever really been passionate enough about Merlot to try and get the right clones and make really good Merlot. I had beautiful Merlot in Italy, and I've had really magnificent Merlots in France. So there is some Merlot that I've really enjoyed, but a lot of Merlot in Australia is lacking in intensity of flavour, is lacking in structure, and so a lot of winemakers will tend to either make sort of a bit of an insipid red wine from Merlot in Australia because the clones are not producing the best quality fruit that you could hope for, but also people will add tannin that doesn't come from the Merlot grape skins and stalks and pips to the wine. This is added tannin, and we started talking about this the other week, and it got a bit sort of political and stuff. And it's not an issue, but it's not a problem. But if you like purity in wine, then wines that have had added tannin confuse your texture senses on your palate. And for me, I'm very sensitive to different textures of wine. And so if I'm drinking a wine that someone's added powdered tannin to make, as Dad said, tannin can fix the colour. So they often add it to make the colour a bit darker in a Cabernet or a Shiraz or a Merlot. And it's also to give the wine more structure. But to my mind, it's the wrong kind of structure. So I'm thinking that perhaps that might be why Merlot is not a wine that you're friends with, Shell, or that Emily's friends with. But if you tasted a really great Merlot from, say, the Right Bank in Bordeaux, from Saint-Emilion or Pomerol, and it didn't have too much oak and it was just beautiful Merlot, or something from Umbria in Italy, you might find that you do like some Merlots. But, sometimes it's just the flavour profile of, it's really blocky. So Alison, this Pinot does have that dryness in the front palate because it's got tannins from the skins of the grapes, but also from the stalks, which is what you get from whole bunch ferment. So one of the things that Dad didn't talk about that I think is really interesting in whole bunch ferment is that when you start a whole bunch ferment, then all of the grapes are theoretically intact. There'll be a few at the bottom of the fermenter that might have got squashed by the heat, by the weight of the... See, I'm delirious from lack of sleep. Some grapes at the bottom which might have been squashed by the weight of the fruit on top of them. But in fact, because our fermenters are quite small, only 2 tons, you don't get a huge amount of gravity pressing the grapes and releasing the juice in the early days of our whole bunch ferments. We use 100% whole bunch. And so there's a chemical reaction that happens inside the grape before the yeast can get to the sugar. And that's called carbonic maceration. It's what happens in the absence of oxygen and the absence of yeast being able to get to the juice, happens inside the berry, and the berry starts to break down and actually starts converting the sugar to alcohol without yeast. And that only happens for a short period of time, but it gives that wine that lifted perfume character. And while Dad was talking, I had the opportunity to just spend some time smelling and tasting the wine, which was awesome. And I reckon that as it opens up and gets some air into it, there's some really lovely violety perfumes, but also some sort of almost like raspberry lollies or musk sticks, or not quite musk sticks. It's not as crass as that. But it's lifted kind of sweet, perfumey kind of smells that are slightly reminiscent of a really posh lolly shop. And that's from the carbonic maceration. It's only a very small part of the wine, because mostly this wine is quite savoury and structured, but it has this little kind of perfumey thing that also lifts it out of just being savoury and structured, which I think is really nice. Once the carbonic maceration's kind of done its job for a few days, that's when Dad gets in and starts walking around on top of the ferment, and that crushes the grapes, releases the juice, and the juice is then able to get in contact with the yeast, and a normal alcoholic fermentation commences. But for a long time during that fermentation, there's not a lot of juice in contact with the stalks. So we don't pull a lot of tannins out of the stalks. And if the stalks are relatively ripe, you'll see Jill and Richard exiting left and right. They're both going to a party. See you later, guys. Have fun. Do you want me to lock up? Shall I lock up when I go? Okay, great. See you later. Have fun. Say hi to Lindsay and Sal. It's that time of year. It's end of vintage. Everyone's having parties. I'm having a party with you guys, so it's cool. So once the juice is released into the system, then you start getting a normal fermentation happening. So it's just a partial carbonic maceration. I should stop trying to say big words tonight, I think. Then you get the juice becoming wine, and the wine in contact with the skins of the grapes as well as the stalks of the grapes, and pulling out a bit of extra tannin. So you get that tannin. It's a fine tannin, but it's more dryness in the front palate with this Pinot, and in the mid palate, Alison, and also a little bit in the back palate. So, but the perfumes and the flavours kind of expand across the back palate like a peacock tail. We talk about the peacock tail of Pinot Noir, and I think this wine is a really good descriptor of that. People also, a really awesome descriptor for Pinot Noir, which I can't remember who. Are they not musk sticks, Alison? I don't know if you remember from the 80s, they were similar, but they were in the shape of a cigar, and they were kind of sweet and musky, and they were Big Boss cigars. And the smell reminds me a little bit of those, just in very small proportions. But yeah, that's quite funny. Musk sticks, I reckon. I haven't heard of Indian sticks, but maybe that's what they were called once upon a time when we were less PC and less worried about offending people. But yeah, that's definitely a character in that aroma profile. Anyway, yeah. We're in a safe space though, Shell. So we'll look after each other here. Now I've lost my complete train of thought, and I've run out of puff. So where are we up to? I think the ones that had the Indian on the wrapper, they were called red sticks, red Big Boss. With the gold on the smoky end. Absolutely, Angela. Redskins. So even more offensive than Indian sticks, they were called redskins. So, yay. Let's finish on a really non-PC note. I'm going to have another glass of Pinot. Yeah, I think I'm broken now. Have I missed anyone's questions, comments, whatever? Did we do enough serious stuff tonight? Has everyone enjoyed? Thank you. Oh, Sue. Oh, Daryl, thank you so much. Please, when you can get back into Sue, take her a glass of wine, take her the computer, and replay it on YouTube. And I'll show you how to do it if you need some help. Let me know if you need some assistance. It's been awesome, everyone. cheers. Next week, before you go, next week we're doing another new release wine, and yes, Daryl, please give Sue everybody's love because we all miss her, and we hope she's feeling much better really soon. Angela, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that this wine has made your brain explode. It's always good. That's ace. How cool are tannins? They're very, very cool. So it's always nice to have a serious discussion. It's always nice to relax afterwards. Next week, as I was saying, Chardonnay, Devil Bean Creek, 2020. Now, look, you've got to get excited about this because I don't even know if I've got the energy for Hugh and Zach and Jack. I've got my spies watching, so it'll be okay. And I'm sure he's doing a great job. Hugh usually does do a very good job. So I'm totally happy with him being in charge of talking about the Robinson Pinot. But Devil Bean Creek 2020 Chardonnay. Now, why are we drinking this 2020 when we're only on 2018 estate Chardonnay? It's because we can't make enough Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay. And this 2020 is really exciting. It was a tiny vintage. We've sold all of the Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay, basically. We made about 120 cases. It's ridiculously small amounts. We sold 50 cases to a Melbourne distributor who sold it all to a restaurant over summer. And we sold 50 cases to a New South Wales distributor who I think have sold all of theirs as well. We've got a handful of cases here at the winery just for you guys and for a couple of restaurants down here who have been really good supporters of that wine. It's a step up from previous Devil Bean Creek Chardonnays, which makes it a little bit of a tragedy that we've got hardly any of it available. It's a pretty special wine. I hope you can join us next week to enjoy that. I will rack my brains for some worthy inspiration for food and wine matching, but big hint, I reckon fish and chips might be on the cards next week. In the meantime, maybe some calamari would be good. Anyway, in the meantime, cheers, everyone. Thanks very much. It's been awesome. Take care. Have a lovely Thursday night. Cheers. Thank you, Karen.